I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Rutland Town School Board. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And may I have a motion for approval of the agenda or any added or deleted things?
I'll make that motion.
Julie?
What the hell did I print?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And now, teacher, staff, and community comments. Anyone? Okay. Then we will move on to introduction of the Rutland Town School Board candidates. And since we have Christy Lawson here, we'll start with her.
My name's Christy Lazan, and I am running for a 2-year seat on the school board. And I'm here to just say hello, and I don't know, I have something to read if you wanted to hear something,
It's up to
or if
you.
it's okay to just say hello.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you very much.
Right. And online, we also have Abby Bennett. Would you like to go, Abby? We can't hear you, Abby. Maybe it's us. Hold on one second. Colin can hear you, but we can't. Okay, can you try again?
Oh.
Now what?
Read lips.
Can we mute this one and you put yours on?
You try that.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Hi, I'm Abby Bennett. I am running for a 2-year position and look forward, to the possibility of being on the board. I have 2 students, children that go there now, so I'm excited to, have this possibility.
Great. Thank you, Abby. And lastly, we have Colin Fingan. Colin?
Yeah, I don't even think he can hear us.
Can he hear you?
Oh, maybe because it's muted
Oh.
there.
Oh, yeah.
I'll unmute.
Yeah.
A second. I will in a second.
Come easier just to-
Thank you, Abby.
There you go. I wonder why I hate technology.
And now, Colin, would you like to speak?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Colin Bingen. I'm running for the 3-year seat on the school board. I have a first grader, Asa, and 21-month-old twins that aren't quite in school yet. I believe I'm running unopposed, but there's always write-ins. But I'm looking forward to helping out where I can. I was on the Rutland City Board of Commissioners from 2006 to 2011 before I moved back to Rutland Town. My father was the business manager for Rutland Public Schools for about 20 years, so a lot of experience in public education financing in Vermont, so I'm looking forward to jumping in, and I appreciate you guys inviting me tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Moving on. Old business, elevator update.
So I think Lewis was.
Lewis, you.
Are we gonna be able to hear him?
Oh, hold on, we have to.
Sorry.
Sorry, sec.
Can you try again, Lewis?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Lewis, go ahead, Lewis.
Okay. So at the last meeting, you had asked for a copy of the floor plans, which were included in the packet. Other than the inclusion of those floor plans, I don't have anything to update. At this time, we're just looking for next steps from the board and how you want us to proceed.
Lewis, a few months.
Sorry.
A few.
Oh my gosh.
a few meetings ago, I don't remember if it was the most recent one or the one before that, but I know the board had asked to put it back out to bid with some more information. So was that not done?
No, because at that meeting, we had also expressed that there would be additional work that was needed before we could put it back out to bid, which would cost money. So we're waiting for the board to give us the authorization to proceed. So we would need to have an architect come in and design plans and specifications that were more detailed before we could successfully go out to bid and potentially get new bidders.
I guess I thought that we had said that we wanted someone to come in and help with that. Because we had the bond for the elevator, we were trying to get information. I don't know if anyone else remembers this.
I don't
discussion.
remember. I'll make a motion to have the architect draw up new plans and what's missing from the original ones.
For the elevator. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that was missing was a way to get out other than the elevator, correct, Louis?
Correct. We would need a second form of egress, the extra stairs that would be needed. And so that's the other piece too. So we talked about it, but the board really didn't decide, do we want to build that second set of stairs before we go out to bid, or do we want to have that as part of the same project, or running simultaneously? That would require additional funding for those that may not be sufficient in what we have for the elevator. So that's really, those are the items that are really stalling this project, and firm decisions on how you want us to proceed, in which order.
Louis, if I could ask, is it possible to proceed with the elevator knowing that it cannot be used? Because by the time we even get that process done, we'll be into the next year and we can find funds perhaps. Right now, we don't have the funds.
We can. I mean, we can put the elevator in, we just won't be able to use it.
Right.
It should be non-operational, and probably need to have signage saying that it's non-operational.
I think we should do that personally, only because we've already, voters have voted on it.
Did you hear her, Louis?
I heard her ask the question, can we move forward with the project, knowing that we would finish the stairs later? And was that the question?
Yeah, basically.
And so what I was saying was that I think we can move forward with the elevator project. We would just have to know in the back of our mind that we cannot make it operational. And then we would probably just have to put signage on there saying that it's not operational until we have that second form. And it's quite possible that because I'm sure the elevator project will take much longer probably than installing some other stairs or that second exit, we could probably potentially run them simultaneously and have that other piece done at the same time or even beforehand.
No, I just, for the board, I definitely think we should proceed because that elevator's only going to get more expensive.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So, Louis, I do believe that we would like to get those specs done so that we can get the bid back out. And I don't know if you wanted, I know that we had also discussed having a fire escape as a second egress until we had something more permanent. So I don't know if you want to include that as a possibility when you're sending out the specs to get, or the architect that comes to get that information for how much that would cost as well.
Yep, so I'll reach out to Kelly this week and we'll set up a time to have the architect come and get that process started. And we'll definitely make that part of the same process for the architect to draw up specs for putting that piece out to bid as well, just in case, because we don't know what that's going to cost. And we can do two different scenarios. One
Good.
being a permanent exit, and one being a temporary exit, just for emergency purposes. With the plan to put a permanent piece eventually.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So moving on to the second floor plan, We've discussed before that we wanted to start holding community meetings to discuss it. And Billy and Jeff had said that they would chair that. Now, Billy, this is your last meeting with us tonight, this term of yours. But you had said that you would still be interested in being
As a
part of
community
that.
member, yeah.
Okay. So that would leave you as the chair from the board standpoint. You can certainly chair it as well from the community standpoint, I suppose. Do you have ideas of how you'd like to go forward with that?
I haven't really given that a thought, but, no, but we can work on it.
Okay. Did you want to try to think about when you might want to meet and what you
Yeah, I
need to
think
do?
Jeff and I can probably get together and come up with a time and date that works for us, and then like open it up to anybody else in the community that's also interested in helping.
Okay. That sounds great. And then we can just get a update at the next meeting from you?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Any architects in the community? No architects in Rutland Town community?
I have no idea.
No.
I mean, we do have the floor plans that
That's from, yeah.
Lewis
sorry.
shared, but it's still, we don't have to go by that necessarily. We can have it redrawn depending on what
There you go.
what the community feels. And next up is new business. As of reorganization in March, so Billy and Lynette, this doesn't as much pertain to you, but we are trying to get all of the local boards to meet in the same week for Chris, so that all information is given out in the same week, so it's all up to date at the same time. There's a little less ambiguity as to who knows what, when, where, what. So I think it was decided that the local boards are going to try to meet the second week of the month. Right now, Rutland Town is meeting on Mondays. I'm asking that if we are moving to the second of the week again, that we not do it Mondays, if that's possible. I was hoping for Tuesday or Wednesday. Are there any conflicts for any of you for Tuesday or Wednesday on a second of the week? Asking Colin if you're still on, and Tim and Jeff at least.
Yeah, I don't have a problem.
I don't think I do. I think, yeah, Tuesday or Wednesday.
I can't hear Colin.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
You couldn't hear because it's.
So we can't hear, we couldn't hear you a second ago. What was your answer, sir?
No, I have no conflicts.
Great, thank you. We'll discuss it and formalize it in March, but I just wanted to get a heads up so I could let the other local boards know when they're trying to decide to. Thank you.
Is there you want to talk about, is it a better day, Tuesday or Wednesday? Because the other boards are going to need to know that.
Well, I think that we had kind of discussed Tuesday potentially, but if someone else can't, then we might move to Wednesday. So it sounds like it could be either, and I'll leave it as that.
For the sound of it, that Quarry Valley and Wells, they're flexible around Mondays and Wednesdays.
Okay.
In IRA, we could actually double up with IRA meeting prior to one of our other meetings. So, because they're pretty quick meetings.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Wednesdays teachers are usually here late, so just keep that in mind.
So it'd be better for you?
I'm
or
just thinking
worse?
they're usually here, everybody's here late on Wednesdays, so if we wanted teachers to come, it may be easier for them on Wednesdays, maybe not.
Okay. I'm open to either one. I just prefer not Monday because it's too crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll just keep it as, we'll figure that out when we get back in March. And just a update for tapestry and childcare at Rutland Town.
so as many of you are aware that we have had a partnership with Tapestry for the past 5 years. The past a year or so, we've not had after-school programming, and it's not due to it's not anyone's fault or issue. It's just I know Marie Gilman, who's the director of Tapestry. She's done a lot. She's bent over backwards. She's tried tried every possible solution to try to find staffing, but it just was not. It's just not not possible. And so we found it very difficult to provide after-school here at Rutland Town this year. We made the decision, myself, Sarah, Lisa Madison, met with the administration from Proctor Elementary, as well as the administration from West Rutland, the 3 schools that partner with Tapestry. We are going to move away from our partnership with Tapestry at the end of this year, and we will look at more creative ways that we can try to provide aftercare programming in our schools. I know that we have 3 schools currently, Tapestry, with the other 5 that do not have Tapestry, and they're finding ways to provide aftercare in a variety of ways. Parents are helping out, staff, some are alternating days, things along those lines. So I think that's something we're going to take a look at over the course of this spring, just how we can provide after school programming for our students. We do know that the difficulty always is just with staffing, and I've said this where we understand that there's a need for after school programming, but I think one of the concerns is that sometimes families believe that schools should be a 365-day, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. operation when they're not designed that way. And so while it's not fair to guilt or to ask staff to work a second job is really what it boils down to. So I think we will look at if we can provide staff, or hopefully we may have some parent volunteers that may want to help us out. I know that other districts have looked at PTOs, have run aftercare programming, and the schools just basically just let them use their space, and it's kind of an outside entity that provides this. But I think we just have to look at more creative solutions to provide this. But I do want to say, because I know that their families have been frustrated, but our staff here at Rutland Town work very hard. They do a great job, and it's not always fair to sit there and say, hey, you know what, you just exhausted yourself at 3 o'clock. Tell you what, go work an extra 3 hours, and burn yourself out, because it's just not ideal. So, but like I said, we have to figure something out, but we will be working on that. But we think Tapestry, our move away from Tapestry will allow us to do that and see what our possibilities are. So we will, I know Sarah and I have talked already about, a survey of sorts, about this and a couple other pressing issues, just kind of getting some feedback, and we'll look at what that looks like for this year. So,
Thank you.
good.
Whoops, I have no idea. Oh, Colin. Colin, you have a comment? Can you?
Hear me, Tina?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Oh, good. Yeah, I just wanted to throw an idea out. In the previous years of my life, I was on the Boys and Girls Club board, and we implemented after-school programs inside of different schools. Barstow is currently using it. Orwell. They're in a handful of schools around our area that kind of is similar to the Tapestry, where they take over the after-school programming, and it's been very successful. I just like to throw that kind of idea out and start at least communication with them to see if that would be something that Rutland Town could do. Again, not overburdening our staff, bringing in some outside help. I think it could be at least a beneficial conversation to have for a possible solution.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. That is one of the options that we currently have in place. Is looking at partnering with Boys and Girls Club. I know that Sarah had tried to do that, but I think it was having some difficulties this past year. But that is something which we can talk to you more about. Looking to partner with you, and hopefully maybe getting that up and running as well. So that'd be great. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm happy to help facilitate where I can. I'm really good friends with the board president there. Not that that matters, but happy to help when and will.
Thanks, Colin.
Thank you, Colin. All right.
It's PTSD from remote.
All right, great. Moving on, consent agenda to director's orders. I need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Billy. All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the minutes from 1/9 and 1/23 meetings. We need motions.
Do you have any changes? I make a motion to approve both January 9 and January 23rd minutes.
Thank you, Lynette. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous again. And now the superintendent's report.
Thanks, Tina. Just a few items to discuss. We are finishing up right now with, getting ready for our town meeting, getting ready for the budget votes. Typically we do a PEG TV presentation that has been completed and finalized and sent off. That should start running next Monday. So it'd be on PEG TV. So if some of you are bored at home and want something exciting, you can take a look at the PEG TV budget presentation. But it will be running there. If you don't have access to that, you can always go to the GRCSU website. We have all of our budget presentations available to view there as well. So you don't just have to wait till the 20th. You can go on there right now and view it if you would like. So we're kind of ready to go there. I know that we completed our mid-year local assessments. I know we have Al here is going to talk about that a little bit later, so I'll kind of defer some of that to our later discussion. Legislative updates, not a lot as of right now. There are a lot of things in the mix that we're kind of keeping a close eye on, particularly one that impacts Rutland Town around what's called Act 66 or Bill 66 around school choice. And so this is something which I believe still in the committee. We have not heard, but so basically the premise of this is they're looking at districts like Rutland Town that have school choice would be limiting or be expected to identify 3 schools, so 3 high schools that our students would go to. So in some of our other districts, they would look at, K through 6, so it'd be a junior high or a high school. So the board would be expected to identify 3 areas, so like Rutland City, Quarry Valley Schools, and somewhere else. But like I said, that's not out of committee yet, so I think there will be a lot of discussions around that. May not make it out of committee, so it could be a moot point, but it is interesting. Just we expected some sort of knee-jerk legislation or bills being passed, particularly around religious tuition, and I think this is one of those bills that are coming through. So just something for us to keep an eye on. There was Act 42, which was passed back in end of January, signed by the governor, and really just how it impacts us on a board level is that we could still have we don't have to have an in-person location. We have all of our meetings in person, but as we look at potentially forming a facilities committee, we would not have to form an in-person location. That could be done all virtual, according to Act 42. So it gives us a little flexibility around that, so people can join in from the home, comfort of their own home. There is also some budget language. I know that we met with our attorney, Chris Leopold, prior to this being adopted, and it just changes the lengthier statement that we currently have in our warning to a single statement, which just lists the overall budget, the total budget. It won't be enforced until 2025, so it is an option for obviously this year and for 2024. But our attorney did suggest, since we had the language already done, we were putting it out there, that we just stay with our current language, and next year we shift to the new language. Mm-hmm.
May I
Yes.
ask a question about Act 66? Is that in the Senate Education Committee?
That right now is, yes.
So we have 2 senators from Rutland County on that committee, Senator Weeks and Senator Williams.
Correct.
So if any constituents in Rutland Town are interested in this debate and want to share their 2 cents, feel free to write Senator Weeks or Senator Williams and let them know what your thoughts are. That's my suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Very good.
So, okay. And the last thing that I have on here is just on February 9th, they signed this in, but they've officially recognized February as School Board Recognition Month, and each of you have a nice certificate in front of you. But I know that I've said this a couple times before, but being a school board member is a thankless position. And I know that with Abby, Colin, and Christy here, not trying to talk it down, but it's you typically don't get a lot of people calling you up to say thank you for the work you're doing. A lot of it is just to provide suggestions or other alternatives to decision making or things along those lines. But I just want to say thank you to Tim, to Billy, to Tina, Jeff, Lynette for all their hard work that they do. It's much more than just showing up one night a month. I do speak with each of these members regularly about issues, about the school, about next steps. Sometimes getting texts early in the morning on a weekend about an issue. But like I said, it's a 7-day-a-week job that they do, and for nothing more than just for the satisfaction of knowing they're doing what's best for the students and the families of Rutland Town. So I just want to say thank each of you for your work, and for Lynette and for Billy, who are moving on. Thank you and best of luck. And Lynette, who I'll save the I'm not gonna steal Tina's thunder, but I just want to say thank you after I won't say how long, but after many years of service. You'll be sorely missed, not just by the board, but by the community. But you'll still be around.
Maybe by a lot of people, I don't think most.
You'll still be around, and I'm sure providing us feedback and input. So I just want to say thank you to everybody. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, principal's report.
All right, thank you. So we finished up our MAP and FastBridge and SABRES testing. We've had a lot of testing, a little bit of delays with some snow days, etc. Teachers were able to take a look at our school-wide data at in-service on Friday at West Rutland, and then this Wednesday they will be looking at more of their classroom data and individual student data. Our 2022 SBAC results were mailed home the week of February 6th. I received a lot of questions from parents saying, why are we receiving this almost a full year later? I don't have control over that. That's when we were able to release those results. So some of them were questioning, is this an error? Is this from last year? And yes, that was from last year. Wanted to give a shout out. Marissa's here, one of the members or leaders of our spelling bee. I'm super excited to have a spelling bee team this year. They had a competition. There's a picture here in the report of Haley Zaliski. She was the winner of the spelling bee, which is great. Our school resource officer has implemented the DARE program fully this year, which is wonderful. So we had our 5th graders were celebrated for completing, they graduated from DARE on January 25th. And we had a nice ceremony. Thank you, Tina, for attending that as well. The Masons came and they donated another $250 to go towards the next DARE class. And OMIA and McDonald's has also been given money to Officer Angie. And kindergarten has since had their DARE graduation as well.
Awesome.
February 9th was our 100th day of school, which was super exciting. And
Adorable pictures.
We made the front page of the paper. Yeah, Mrs. Waite's class. Oh, just the cutest. Just the cutest. Hiring update. We are still looking for substitute teachers and nurse substitutes, and we're also looking for a girls lacrosse coach. So any parents, everybody out there that wants to coach our middle school girls lacrosse, we haven't heard from anybody that's interested. So we have a lot of players that are excited to play. Not on my principal's report, but before I move down to building manners and some upcoming dates, I do just want to add that I know we talked a little bit about behavior at the last board meeting and some data. I will say, especially since coming back from December break, the behaviors, especially in our primary grades, have been very tiring on all of us, parents and kids included. We're seeing, and it's across the country, not just here, but especially in our primary grades, kids just unable to regulate their emotions, and give your primary teachers some extra love, because it's been a lot, very exhausting, and we're just seeing a lot of these kids that, is it because of COVID? I'm not sure, but just a lot of disruptive behavior. It's across the board, especially in those primary grades. On the flip side of that, I had been sharing earlier, I have a 5th grader that decided to play basketball this year, and I haven't spent this much time watching basketball in a while, and I've been taken back in not so good of a way of watching some parents and players, not from here, just poor sportsmanship, not saying good game, parents not being the best role models for their children at games. But I will say, to no surprise, I am so proud of Rutland Town. And I told our teachers on Friday morning that MAP scores aside, our goal is to raise and nurture respectful young adults. And that's what I see out on the court from parents and from kids, winning or losing, good game, helping them up, taking a knee. And I've heard it from many other parents in other towns have complimented their Rutland Town players. And I say, yeah, like, what do you expect? But it wasn't until I've watched those other opponents and how they behave that I'm like, wow, they really do stand out. Just opening doors for people, saying, here, you can take my jersey. So kudos to not only our teachers and staff, but parents, because it takes a village. Definitely takes a village. Building matters. We had a flood a couple weeks ago in our middle school. So I got a call from Mr. Treya, and I heard squashing and squishing in the background. And I unfortunately have heard that sound before. Mr. Rowe and I have definitely been knee deep in water with Mr. Cologne a couple of times. So I said, oh no. So I was able, unfortunately, to get a hold of Chris and Lisa early, and we had a 2-hour delay. Thank you to Betcha, who was able to get back to me to do a second bus run to get our students here. It was all hands on deck here, which was great. Every teacher, every staff was helping clean, move, and I was so thankful that our teachers were here early to help. So they did a really good job in the cleanup, so I don't think insurance needs to really do anything after this. So Kelly reached out to Lewis and Chris, and our insurance company suggested touching base with disaster recovery. So a company came in here and set up some fans, kind of noisy in the hallway for a few days. The only thing about our air and moisture, it's a little too dry now in some areas. So the air is great. It's a little dry in some areas, which we are in Vermont. Kelly came in on the weekend and cleaned up all the dirty spots, so everything is back to normal.
Great.
Yeah. The automatic door we talked about last meeting, that we were looking at getting a handicap accessible door, and we got a few quotes for that, about between $3,500 to over $5,000. Kelly did some research, touched base with Greg Connors in IT, and he installed it himself for about $700. So we have, so we wanted to do one first, and we're going to do more, but we wanted to test it out. And there's still a few things we're working on. But if you go down by the gym, there's the handicap accessibility door, and I think teachers have really liked it, because if they just swipe their swipe card, they can walk in and don't have to put stuff down. So they've definitely appreciated that. So we hope to get some more in there. Lead results, all those have come back excellent. I think we have to be under 0.4%, and we're all under 0.1. Efficiency Vermont, air testing results have all come back great. The LED type A light bulbs, we did one in the primary wing. We hope to do some more of those changeovers during break. For middle school, we had the chorus and jazz band district festival on Friday of in-service, and I forgot to put on here, which I can't believe I forgot, we have our preschool registration tomorrow. Ooh. So we don't have preschool tomorrow because we are registering for our 23, 24, and any student that hasn't been screened yet. So we have a full roster of little kids that are coming in. We're pretty excited for tomorrow. We had in-service on Friday, as I had mentioned. We have February break coming up, and then I just put on here, I know it's down the road in April, but our school resource officer and guidance counselor had attended social media assembly in Burlington, and we were able to secure that company to come present to our middle school students, 6th through 8th, as well as a parent night. I have received a number of requests from parents about parenting middle school children especially, and also just how to better monitor their technology, especially around social media. So I'm hoping that we'll get a good turnout.
Awesome.
Here. One thing that also isn't in here is Countryside, the fire safety for upstairs we had talked about. So they're slated to come here to do that. They said late March or April break. So they will be doing that. And Katie McDougall had applied for a grant for the Rutland South Rotary, which she received last month, which is good news. She'll get some yoga mats so she can bring her kids outside. She was borrowing Bailey's, so now she has her own. And I just want to encourage everybody to get out and vote. We have some vote signs by the gym door that people can take to put on their lawn if they like, and we have some by the main door up here. So please get out and vote. That's it.
Sarah, when you find out how many preschool students are coming in and how many, or approximately how many will still be, because a lot of have already been screened, the ones that are on our wait list. So will we have an update in March maybe, so just to give us a heads up about what's going on?
The numbers?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just to
Yeah.
kind of keep up on that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you so much. All right, moving on. We have a resignation. I don't have it in front of me. I remember it's Patricia Carpenter, our art teacher, who will be with us till the end of the year, and we'll miss her a lot.
Make a motion to accept the resignation of Patricia Carpenter.
Thank you, Lynette. And someone that has the contract recommendations in front of them. Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Unanimous. Contract recommendations, could someone read those out loud for me?
Is it Michael Lamar? I make a motion to hire Michael as assistant principal.
Thank you. Michael, would you like to introduce yourself to the Rutland Town community?
Sure, yeah, thanks. Thanks, everybody. So yeah, Mike Lamar, currently live in Barry. I'm a 5th grade teacher at the Waits River Valley School, a bit smaller than here. And he's stepping into the administration role. Happy to partner with Sarah. I got to come and visit, and you should be proud of the school that you help support here. Everything that I saw that day got me excited about coming to join the family, and I'm just really glad to be here, and I can't wait for July 1. So
Awesome.
thanks.
Congratulations.
Thank you for coming tonight.
You're coming at the right time. I'm leaving.
I can still call you. Don't worry.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
I do have quite the drive, so I'm going to sneak out now.
Okay.
But
Thank
thank
you.
everybody.
Drive
Nice to
careful.
meet
Take care. Drive safely. All right, next up is a sabbatical leave request.
So this was down in the packet, but we do have an employee, Marisa Kefeber, who's actually here, talk about an opportunity that she will have next spring, correct? Through the Fulbrights. So Marisa, you just want to talk a little bit about?
Yeah.
As opposed to me talking when you're right there, so.
So I have a packet for each of you. The first page, actually, if you could take one and pass it down. The first page is information all about the Fulbright organization, which is a government program that provides grants to folks in the United States to go abroad, learn more about a particular content of their choosing. If you flip over to the second page, this is the specific grant that I'm applying to. This is the Fulbright Distinguished Awards in Teaching Research Program. It is a mouthful. I am hoping to go to the Netherlands to study literacy education next January through May. I would really like to focus on literacy education in their public and community schools. They have community schools that model the community as a resource hub for many locations. And as you've mentioned with Tapestry and sports, we already fill that role. But I'm very curious to see what that looks like in a community that actually acknowledges that we fill that role and provides money and support and real resources to fully support our learners. And I'm very curious to see how that impacts students' literacy and what I can glean from those situations and bring back here to this community. So I'm hoping to gain your approval of this sabbatical leave so that I can push submit on my Fulbright application. Once I do that, I should hear back by the end of the school year if I get accepted. There is a slim chance, so I'm asking for you to take a chance on me as well. That if I do get that, I'd like to go January through May of next year. I understand that the sabbatical leave is unpaid, but the leave form on the back asks if I can be returned to my position when I return. I love my 5th grade job and would really love to be able to return to that when I come back from the Netherlands, if I get accepted. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So we have to hire long-term?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Any discussion? When in May? I'm just curious, because it would be like you'd be missing a good chunk and then come back when it's
Yeah.
like almost wrapped up.
I'm not sure yet.
Yeah.
I think those are the details that can be worked out once I get accepted. And if there's something that the board would have, like, why don't you go February through the end of the year? That's also a possibility. They say just, I think it's a minimum of 3 months to a maximum of 6 months.
And do you know what their school schedule's like? Like,
They're in school at the same time, yeah.
Okay, so they end in June as well?
I believe so, but I think it depends on which type of school and where in the country. Yeah. But those details I can answer for you once I'm accepted.
Okay. I mean, I would just like to see, I think, less disruption for the students. So if it's possible to either, have more time at the end so that you make more of an impact.
Yeah.
Or, more time before you go or
Yeah.
something like that. I think it would make more sense.
That sounds good. I'm happy to make that adjustment.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Lynette, and good luck.
Thank you.
Hope you get it.
Me too.
All right. In your packet are the vacancies for your information only. And it looks like we'll be adding an art teacher to that.
Yes, yep. I had already emailed Christine asking her to post it tomorrow morning.
Perfect. All right, so Tim, you'll probably get notification, I guess, for that. All right, next up is the chair reports and goals. All right, so we talked a little bit, or I had asked everyone if they had a minute to, well, I guess I'll start with the executive committee. We really haven't met other than to do some executive session work. So, I can't really discuss any of that right now. At the GRCSU board, I'm trying to think if there's anything super exciting. I think we did discuss.
It's budget. That's,
Yeah.
Right.
It's taking over
Lives.
the lives right now. So budget
That
town
and
meeting,
just,
so that's
right, and discussing going to the 1 week a month
Yep.
thing.
And the
Which is
SU
very
on the
important.
first week
Right.
of the month. And I think we talked a little bit about policies again.
Oh, yeah, that one.
But I think also just in shifting how policies go out, correct?
So they're coming to the SU first and then going to the local boards. And we've been trying to do that, I think, a little bit, but it's still kind of hit or miss.
Because it'll be so much easier with the first week and then the second week.
Yeah, and that way it won't get distributed to the local boards until the SU board is happy with it.
Right.
Which I think will reduce time at the local board meetings too, hopefully. And then for the RTS goals, we had gone over our quarterly update last meeting in January, but we weren't able to discuss the academic achievement piece of it. So we were waiting to get a map update this time with, yeah. Thank you very much for coming today. Al?
So I apologize that the data report was not ready in time for your packets.
Oh, that's okay.
But we're coming around now. For those of you who don't know, my name is Al Gregory. I'm the district data manager for the GRCSU. As has been noted previously in the principal's report, we did just finish our winter term of MAP testing. The MAP test we give 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring. We use it to see how our students are performing and what kind of growth they're making over the course of the school year. And this particular report is very similar with one exception to what we just looked at on our in-service day last Friday. The exception is that I have added a comparison between last year's and this year's data on each of these charts. So starting with the reading performance, this first chart shows a comparison of last year's kindergarten to this year's kindergarten, last year's first grade to this year's first grade. And it is achievement broken out by percentile band, so we have the percentage of students in each of the percentile bands represented here. The red band is the 0 to 20th percentile, the orange band is 20 to 40th, yellow is 40 to 60, green is 60 to 80, and the blue is 80 to 100. But moving on to the next chart, this is where I think it gets a little more telling, because this chart, we've adjusted the data to follow student cohorts. So the first bar is our kindergarten, which only has one data point because they're due to the test this year. The second set of bars is kindergarten and first grade, so now we're following the same group of students through the school years. And so on down the chart to our 7th and 8th grade class. This chart allows us for a little bit better comparison about how that same group of students is doing. And one of the things you can notice is the different colored bands actually follow each other a little bit more with there's some variability that you're going to have year to year, but they line up pretty well, group to group. So again, this is achievement. The next chart in the packet, this is our growth. Again, we're going back to that comparison, kindergarten to kindergarten, first to first, second to second. So this does not follow the cohort groups. Give you guys a little minute to look through.
Could you explain what you mean by growth, just so the board knows? So when you're showing growth,
Okay.
or what does that mean?
Sure. So in this case, we're looking at fall to winter growth on our MAP test. So they come in the fall, about September. They take a test for the baseline for the year. Then halfway through the school year, we give them the same assessment. And what we're looking for is an increase in their overall score on that assessment. This particular test is computer adaptive, so it means that when a student comes in, they sit down, they take the first question, they get it right or they get it wrong. If they get it right, they get a harder question. If they get it wrong, they get an easier question. And it tries to go back and forth until it finds that spot where a student is at academically. Most students end up getting about 50% of their questions right and 50% of their questions wrong. So that's the kind of assessment this is. When they narrow in on that band in the fall, they are given a score. It might be, say, 200. And then they're given a growth goal. And that growth goal might be a 205 in the winter test. So on the winter assessment, it zeroes in on that score. Maybe they score 206. Well, their growth is 6 points, but then we convert that into a percentile. And in the case where they scored a little higher than their projected growth, we say they're growing above the 50th percentile. It might be 52nd or 55th, depending on that band. Does that make sense? Are there questions?
How's the goal determined?
The goal is determined by the national norms. So they take this test, they give it to 100,000 students nationwide, they collect the data, they run it through a series of statistical algorithms, and then they create a chart that tells you here's a score, this is the percentile, and this is the expected growth based on that percentile range that they fell into.
So if a student got a score of 240 in one grade, and then they take it again and they get a 240. Is that the same, or is it a 240 for 5th grade is different than a 240 for 6th grade?
240, if we're looking at winter to winter comparison, a 240 for 5th grade and a 240 for 6th grade would actually be a lower percentile band than a 240 for a 5th grader. So we expect our 6th graders to perform a little bit better than 5th grade.
So that number is the same throughout the grade. So when they're in 2nd grade, they might be in the hundreds.
Yes,
And then when they're in the middle school, then they're getting closer to 200s.
yes. Okay, so,
I just got a couple of
I'm sorry, go ahead.
questions. I guess so I guess this is sort of what I'm witnessing. So I just want to. So on the growth component, the growth maps out the same way like a stock price would in the stock market, right? So like if you got $1 stock and it goes up to $2, all of a sudden your growth's exponential. But if you got a $10 stock and it goes up the same $1, the growth is far less, right?
Yeah.
So if you have someone that's in the high percentile, their growth's not gonna look strong because the ceiling is eventually gonna cap for a particular grade.
That's sort of right.
Okay.
So, but Tim, I think that's where when we get to the quadrants, I think that's what you'll see. Like that would be a
It's
high
tough.
performance, right? Because
That's the toughest. When you're performing high, I think just talking to the kids, it's really tough to move if you're already above that average.
And then my other question,
Well, I'd like to hold on that question just for a minute, because
Yep, go for
there
it.
is one point, like a kindergartner, even if they are achieving fairly high for kindergarten, they also have a lot more room for growth. So that can also affect it. It's a little more complicated than the stock market example because of that. But an 8th grader has less room for growth.
got it.
And our high schoolers, of course, if you're in 11th grade, it's really tough to show a lot of growth. You can, and it's measurable, and there is a value that we can assign to it. But the MAP folks recognize too that in kindergarten, we might be expected to grow 10 points, but in 11th grade, we might only be expected to grow 1 point in that same time frame.
Got it.
And sorry, your second question.
I'll let you go through the numbers because the other question's more of a broader stroke. So I'll let you go through with me. Thank you.
Okay, so now we have the reading, this is the reading growth chart by cohort. Which again, it's a very similar story to what we were looking at for the achievement. When you line the cohorts up, now you're looking at the same students, grade level to grade level. And you can see that the bands line up a lot more closely than they do when you're just looking at a comparison of kindergarten to kindergarten or first to first, because in the other comparison, the students change. And now we'll get to the quadrant chart that we were referencing before. This quadrant chart takes, as an example, your growth percentile, converts it to a z-score, your achievement percentile, converts it to a z-score, which is just a statistical exercise that we do so that we can accurately compare groups. And what you're really looking for under achievement, this 0 line and to the right is where you want to be. And for growth, this 0 line and above is where you'd really like to be. And as has been mentioned, when you have a lot of high achieving students, it is a little harder to achieve a high level of growth. In this case, though, what we've got is the blue dots represent last winter's students, and the red dots represent this year's or this winter's test results. And I have labeled each of them with current fourth grade or current fifth grade. So you can just see where they compare and where they fall out on that chart.
Al, is this grade level or cohort when you say current?
That's cohort.
Okay. So current for,
So current for blue and current for red is the same group of students.
okay. Okay. Thanks.
When did we first start doing the map testing?
In RCS, for the former RCSU schools, we started doing the map testing in, I think, was it 2019? And-
It was 5 years ago we began looking at it, but we did not
Yeah.
get a full year of data because it was mid-year. And then our first full year, then we lost because of COVID. So last year was really our first
It was our-
full year of data. Right?
That's right.
It seems like there's quite a few, 7th, 8th,
Yeah, anything under the.
pretty high on the low and low average on reading.
Mm-hmm.
Is that typical across other schools that use a map? Or,
Can we go back to that bar chart?
Cohort or grade?
Talking-
Are you looking at the?
I'm looking at the growth quintile by grade, I guess. So maybe that's growth versus reading. But even reading achievement was, if you look at that one,
So one more chart back.
reading achievement looks better.
Right,
Yeah.
whereas,
So
yeah,
ideally, because this is nationally normed, if you look at this 50% one, if we were to fit dead on the bell curve for the national average, this yellow bar would evenly straddle that 50% line. And most of those bars, when you're looking at your achievement, your yellow is shifted down, which means you're achieving above the national average.
all except one grade, yep. Oh, no. Okay.
No.
Yeah, all of them, I got it
Your
now.
achievement is
Yep.
above the national average pretty much across the board.
Yep,
And
So then, if we use that to think about growth, would it be the same thing? That the yellow line's supposed to be straddling the 50%?
yes, that would be if you were on, right dead on the the national norm for
So it looks
growth.
like that's maybe where we need to focus,
I don't know, it looks, doesn't
on
look
the
bad.
growth one.
Yeah,
Growth,
growth is right there, though.
Because, well, yellow's
Except
above
for-
the, yeah, it's
She's looking at reading growth by cohort.
growth, growth quintile by grade.
so ideally you want your yellow bar to
Yeah.
be straddled.
So it's a little high.
Yeah.
So that might be where we want to focus when we're looking.
Our growth is a little below the national average on that. And if you move back to the quadrant chart, that shows up there as well.
Yep, it does.
Yep.
We have a number of groupings that are below this this 0 line. And the 0 line represents the national average. But when you look at achievement,
Don't touch it. Jean.
you can see that the majority of our students are achieving well above the national average.
And Al, for someone who maybe is at home or looking at this, can you just explain what each quadrant is? Because I know it's not labeled, but you have low achievement, low growth, up to high achievement, high growth. Like which quadrant would be which? Just
So this lower left quadrant here is your low achievement, low growth group. This quadrant here is your high achievement, low growth group, so that's the lower right quadrant. Upper left would be low achievement but high growth. And upper right is your high achievement, high growth. And one of the things that we do with this data, I mean, this is the average of a class here. But one thing that we would do is, as teachers, we would have the teachers go in and look at the individual students, and they have a quadrant chart just like this for each student in reading and math. And what they're looking for is, one, to identify students in this quadrant so that they can give them intervention, a little extra help. But what you would want to see eventually is students who fall on this side of your achievement line. You would love to see them up here in the high growth area. And oftentimes you do find that with students who are in a solid intervention, they're getting the help they need, they're getting the EST supports. Their achievement may be low, but a lot of times that growth is up there above that line. And we spend a lot of time taking a look at those charts.
So you just spent all day Friday, or part of the day Friday, kind of going over this?
We spent at least the morning Friday going over this data for each school. And normally I have a follow-up meeting with the principals afterwards to find out how those discussions went. I haven't had a chance to do that yet. But that will be on the schedule. And, we'll collect all of that information together and feed it back to the administration so that they can use it to make plans for the future. And then we have the same set of charts again for mathematics. Achievement by grade, with the grades compared to one another.
Mm-hmm.
Cohort data.
Mm-hmm. Now, those two look really good, really strong. So what's the difference when we get to quintile? Because now I'm looking at it and we don't look so good.
The difference between achievement and growth.
No, between growth,
Well, the first two were achievement.
right, okay, so
This
what's,
one's growth. So how much they've increased in their test taking
I'm
ability.
actually on the third one.
Yeah, this one, right?
So that's the
Okay.
growth again.
That's your
You're
growth.
achieving high. Sometimes it's tough to move up.
But the quintile one doesn't have, I mean, there are some where they're very good, but there are more that are in the low average.
That's the growth.
This is very similar to what we saw in the reading charts. When you were looking at achievement, that yellow bar was down
Right.
here, pretty much across the board.
Mm-hmm.
So if we go back one to the math achievement, this is math now. And
Right.
you can see those yellow bars.
Right, it's yellow and green all the way across, but when you get to the quintile, they're all below.
This chart is achievement.
Right,
Let's move forward.
So if achievement's high, growth is often low because it's harder to move forward, like to move up.
yeah, no,
She's
it's the
looking at the
next
next
one.
The
one.
next chart.
Yep,
Now
Yeah,
we've
this
moved
one.
from
This one.
achievement to growth.
okay,
So achievement, it's just how did I do on the test that day?
right,
But the growth is how did I do in the fall? How did I do in the winter? And did I get a higher score? So this is your percentage of students. And it's not to say that they're not growing. That isn't the point.
Right, I'm just
It's
saying this-
whether or not you're growing above or below the national average.
okay. I'm just saying, this one, when you look at it, it makes it appear that we need help. No, because the 50th is, there's a lot of low average in some of the, when you take it across, now you're seeing the orangish show up. Say, right,
I wonder
And that's
if,
the growth.
the quadrant real quick.
let's try to go to the quadrant, see if it'll make more sense.
okay.
So here on the quadrant, this is a reflection of what I was saying earlier.
Okay, that's better than the other one, okay.
Achievement goes across the horizontal axis. And you can see most of our points are over here on the right-hand side, so we have pretty good achievement. When you look at the growth, which is the y-axis, there's a scattering of points, but if you count them up, the majority of our points are on the lower side. So even though our achievement is high, on average our growth is a little low, but you got a number of points that are up here in this high growth, high achievement quadrant as well. So it comes down to that thing we were saying before. We have very high achievement, so getting high growth is a little more difficult.
Okay.
But it looked like we did have an easier time in math than we did in
Yes.
ELA.
Yeah.
And I'm also curious, do you ever compare growth from spring, for one student from spring through?
Yes, when we have the spring data available. I have a number of charts that that show fall to spring growth and achievement. We can look at fall to fall, winter to winter, spring to spring. They give me all of that data, and I can
You can do what
chart
you
all
want with
of it.
it. If you
But
have more time in the day.
But not everybody wants to see all of that.
Okay, thank you.
Any discussion from the board on that?
No, thank you.
Yeah, I have one more burning question. I don't know if this is for you or maybe Sarah and Chris can. So, like, I guess my question is, is what, in fact, how the questions are delivered, right? So, like, I was just read an article on like the proficiency-based grading component, and I also see it like with my own children, like when some of their work comes home, like Sophie will get, sorry Sophie, yeah, she'll get like a math question, right, and she'll get like partial credit because she knows the concept, but she transposed the number.
Okay.
So her teacher's like, oh, she's excelling, she's doing great, she's done it, yeah. But then when she sits down to take this MAPS test, like, is she seeing, like she said, that there's four answers that are very close, and when she transposes on that test, she's not getting partial credit, she's getting 0 credit. So like, how can you kind of help me conceptualize how a teacher or how you guys kind of monetize that? Or I just, I don't know how the MAPS score versus the proficiency-based aspect, how it kind of gels, and how a teacher can figure that out. Because I'm like, Sophie, you transpose those two numbers in, but you knew it all, but you just didn't double check it, or
It's just a miscalculation error at the end. Yeah.
So as she takes 9 out of the 10 steps, but then, so that's why, like, when MAPS comes up, it's like, how are some of these kids,
Why does their MAP score look so different than their jump rope score? I think is what your question is.
Yeah, potential. I don't know. Maybe there's something within the MAPS that, does MAPS, is there an algorithm that says, oh, they transpose that number, or does MAPS just say, oh, they got that one wrong? You know what I mean? So
They got it wrong.
When it comes right down to it, it looks at that question, it says, oh, they got it wrong.
yeah.
Depending where they are in that assessment, though, the very next question might be, okay, they got that one wrong. We're going to come down and try some easier concepts. She gets a chance to answer that question. If that's answered right, then you jump back up, okay, we're getting the harder concept again.
Got it.
So now she has another chance at answering a similar question. It's not going to be the same,
Yeah.
but similar thought process, similar procedure. Maybe this time she doesn't transpose it, so then that one's right. Well, now we're going to give you another harder question.
Okay. So that's not a hard stop.
It's not a hard stop kind of thing. But that is where this test, this kind of assessment is different from what a teacher might give on paper in a classroom too. You have certain concepts you want to make sure have been learned, so you come up with a paper and pencil assessment. You give it to them, maybe there's partial credit, but they're assessing what they just taught, whereas the MAP test is that computer adaptive thing. So every time you're going to get half of your questions wrong. So it's very different from that in-class paper and pencil kind of assessment in that way.
Got it.
I don't know if that answers the question directly or not.
Yeah, I mean, it helps.
And MAP isn't the only one like that.
So I think, this is not, as we look at these scores, this is not an indictment on a student or a staff member. Like I said, I think we're in a situation where if I'm a teacher and I'm looking at, I get the scores back and I'm saying, I'm looking at one student in particular, and I'm like, well, this doesn't add up, and I'm, I have my local assessments here and I'm seeing the map, and there's a good conversation to be had with the student and say, okay, well, you're doing fine. Well, then you kind of work with that student on this. So that's sometimes where I think we always have to be very careful when we look at something like this and sit there and say, are we doing well or are we not doing? Because there are a lot of hypotheticals. And I know as we're shifting to this new assessment for the state, Cognia, one of the things that you'll hear discussed is what's called Webb's depth of knowledge, which, when I was down in New Jersey, the assessment down there was tied up. So basically what it was, our teachers are going to have to understand is better test design. So like on this assessment, if there are 4 different levels of asking a question, let's say that they're assessing a standard or one of our learning standards at say level 3, as a classroom teacher, we want to make sure that as we're giving our local assessments in the classroom, we want to make sure that we're replicating what that level 3 assessment looks like, that we're not assessing at a level 1 or a level 4, because what happens is you may sit there, this child's showing mastery, but they're not showing mastery in the way that the test is going to ask for it. So it's having a better understanding of the Webb's depth of knowledge, and so it's just, some discussions that we have to have, the admin have to have the staff, just really kind of having a better understanding in terms of what they're going to ask the students, what level it would be, and then make sure that as I'm designing my local assessments, my lessons, that I'm mirroring that. That's no different than when, as a high school teacher, we were looking at trying to raise SAT scores, which was kind of laughable, but we spent a lot of time, though, really understanding the test design and looking at the questions that were asked and replicating those questions. So really when a student sat down for that test, they were prepared, but there's also comfort level because it looked like, oh, this is like what I'm doing. And you talk about, and since you I'll put my daughter on the spot, when she was looking at addition, they were always doing the stacking, and then when they put them side by side, she had no idea. She's like, I don't know what to do, because they weren't how she saw it. And when they put them side by side, she's like, I got them all wrong because it just didn't register that way. So it was just understanding that, and so our scores look poor, but she really understood the concepts and could do it. So
I mean, the teachers have been great advocates and guides through the whole process. So kudos to them for sure. But the tests are stressful for the school and they're stressful for the kids, and so anytime we can set them up for success, as they go into those tests. So, but no, I appreciate it. I just having read that article and then recently gotten maps back is like
good questions.
Good question.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. Just a quick little note. Did anyone have a chance to watch that webinar about how boards can affect student outcomes?
I didn't know.
Okay.
But I will. I know you brought it up to me the other day.
Thank you, Al.
So, I guess one of the main, or a few of the things that I took from it is, one of the things they opened with was that good school board governance is boring, which I think is kind of true. I mean, we lost our audience. So I think we're doing a good job there. But there's a lot of other core principles that were mentioned. So I do encourage you to take an hour of your time, if you don't mind, and just checking it out, particularly Tim and Colin, if you're still there. I could send it to you. It's interesting. All right, moving on to policies. We have 2 second read policies, D1 and F21. I do believe we went over this at the SU board, and I've already made my comments there regarding formatting and on D1 and on F21 changing a his or her to their in the first paragraph. Did anyone have any other comments to add? They are meeting next week. Oh no, this week on Wednesday at 6. Yeah.
I don't think the board had any problems with them either, those two.
Yeah, I think they're just gonna clean them up a little bit.
Yep.
All right, so I need a motion.
Make that motion.
Thank you, Tim. All in favor to approve both D1 and F21 with the formatting and grammar changes?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous, thank you. And then A1 is a first read. Did anyone have any comments to add?
No.
I just had one thing I was thinking about and I wanted to get your opinion on. On the second page, the last line of the first paragraph, I was thinking it may make sense to change responsibility of employees and students to responsibility of employees, students, and students' families too. So I don't think it's just students that are affected by the policies. I think it's the families too, the parents sometimes.
I don't know if that's gonna muck up the policy more.
To put students and students' families.
Families, right, in there. While we always take any comments, not that I've ever known anybody to comment on them, but look at the problems the board itself has in going through these policies. So I don't think, I mean, they have another way to, because all they're getting the policy, they're not getting the procedures. So the explanation really isn't there for families.
Can I borrow that, Jeff?
We don't mention.
But shouldn't it, well, it's the responsibility of employees and students to know and follow board policy. So some of the policies.
It wouldn't hurt to put families in there.
Yeah. Because
I'm sorry, I didn't have it in front of me.
Oh, that's okay.
No, it wouldn't hurt because that's really who's gonna.
Right, because it's not just the students, it's also the families have
Actually,
to abide by the
family
policies.
members, right, more so than even students.
Tim, Billy, Jeff,
Fine
do
with
you
that.
guys have any?
I don't think Wes is gonna know the board policy.
No.
Okay. So we'll just send that back, so as a board, we'll send that
You're
back.
gonna send that to Eric or,
Well, Jeff, are you going to the meeting on Wednesday?
Yep.
I'm going to try to virtually join because Billy cannot make it, right?
Right.
So I will also try to be there, so if I'm not there, I'd love it if you would mention that,
Okay.
but I will try to make it, to mention that too. Okay, finally, Lewis, I'm sorry it took so long to get to you. Financial reports.
Okay. So in the packet, along with the regular financials you see every month, was a expense forecast for the current school year. So it's just some of the parameters that were around that. So I looked at all of our actual expenditures to date, and for staffing, salaries, and benefits, I estimate what those lines will be based on current staff in place at the time that I created this report. For anything that's contracted and where we know what we're going to pay, I have those amounts in as the anticipated line item. And then for tuitions, that's based on like students that we know of today with the schools that they're attending. So any changes between now and then wouldn't be in there. But for any other line, like supply lines, dues and fees, books, and all those types of lines where we have not spent to budget yet, though the anticipated column would reflect what is currently budgeted.
okay,
So that would reflect that we still have room to spend in those lines. If we've already exceeded budget, then the anticipated column would reflect what we've currently spent. So based on all of those parameters, we are running a pretty tight budget this year. Right now, we're pretty much break even based on what we're anticipating. If we don't spend to budget on all those lines, like the supply lines and dues and fees lines, then we'll potentially have some additional savings that'll add to that. But I've sent this in to Sarah in advance, and I've just recommended that it would be my recommendation that we just be cautious with our spending for the remainder of the year. We don't want to end in a deficit position. So if it's something that's not needed and can wait until next year, that we hold off and we try to stay within our budget for any other line that we haven't spent, that where we have some say. That if we haven't spent the budget yet, make sure we stay within budget, and if we can have savings in those lines, then definitely we try to bank those savings to help build that surplus amount a little bit.
Okay.
Sounds good. Any other comments?
Questions on that?
Not on that.
You have to unmute.
I don't think anyone has questions. Thank you so much, Louis.
Okay, you're welcome.
Louis, I'm sorry. On spending per pupil or for, has something changed as far as high school tuition goes, as far as the state is concerned? Because we used to get a bill at the end of the year, say Rutland City is charging too much, okay, or is not charging enough. We have gotten bill backs before where we've had to pay. Is that continuing?
Yeah, so the process has not changed. I did report at the last meeting that we did receive invoices for Rutland City for last year because they underbilled. The invoices were approximately $70,000. However, they did not meet the statutory deadline of December 15th, and therefore I recommended that we didn't pay them, and the board was in agreement.
Okay. The reason I ask is just...
Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you. Just to let you know, at the last two school boards ago from Rutland City, they had asked 14%, 10%, what are you doing? Why is our tuition one of the highest in the state? And he said, because if I don't bill enough, they don't have to pay us. And I think that is like way wrong. Of course, school board members don't know anything. I just to keep that there in case somebody should ask you, because I know we have paid bill backs. Sorry. Louis is talking.
Allowable tuition number to each district, and if you undercharged by more than 3%, then you can do an additional invoice. But it is required that you let the districts know that you will be doing additional billing by December 15th.
Okay.
And if you don't, then there is no requirement for you to pay. And then the same thing goes for refunds, but there is no deadline for the refunds. So they do, if you've overbilled by more than 3%, then you do have to give a refund to the district.
And overbilling is by number of students, not, they bill us 19,000, but it really only costs 17,000.
Well, it's based on a per student basis.
Right.
So it's based on their announced tuition versus what their allowable tuition. Their allowable tuition is calculated by the state. So at the end of the year, we have to submit reports to the state. It's called the stat book, where we have to group all of the expenses by different categories based on our chart of accounts and codes. And all that data gets submitted along with the student counts that the school has. And they take all of that data and they calculate what they call an allowable tuition amount. And so if you have, say, 50 students and they overbilled by $1,000, then they would owe you a $50,000 refund. Or if they undercharged, then it would be a $50,000 invoice. There's a little bit more to it, and as far as complexity goes, where if it's over 3%, they can't bill for the first 3%, and they can only bill up to 10%. So if they underbilled by 20%, it is capped at 10%.
Okay, and the state runs, what, 2 years behind on checking those figures?
For allowable, it's 1 year behind. So the allowable tuition for last year, being FY22, would have come out this fall. And then we have until July 31st to pay it if we're invoiced. So that gives you the opportunity to either pay it in this current year, which would not be budgeted, or budget it in the following year and pay it in July.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lewis. Anybody else have anything else for Lewis?
I don't.
Okay. So, whoops. So our next meeting, we will have the annual town meeting the night before town meeting day at 7 p.m. in the cafeteria. And so I guess since Act 42, if there is a blizzard or something else, we can still hold our meeting remotely without having to physically be there. Correct?
For the town meeting?
For the town meeting, pre-town meeting, or whatever
No,
that
town
is.
meeting.
Town meeting.
So
Or is that dependent on the
that
select
would,
board?
so really, and I'll double check this with Chris Leopold, we had talked about this a couple weeks ago when we were having some bad weather about whether or not we could change the meeting location, and I think he talked about state of emergency, governor having to issue that.
Right.
So I will ask and confirm whether or not we can change. We'd have to rewarn the meeting, or just quickly just let people know if there is an issue, weather related, along those lines. But
Hopefully it won't be, but
yeah,
Right.
fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, and I'm just saying that, just keep in mind that should the same thing happen again, that if, how bad it's going to appear, select board, we will not cancel a meeting. I think we should be able to have a virtual link for the people that are unable to attend because of the weather, and I think then you're covered. But the select board being here, and then all of a sudden, well, no, the school board said the weather's too bad, they're canceling theirs. We really shouldn't do that, because that's not gonna bode well for the vote. That's all.
thanks. So will Lewis be at that night, Monday night, the 6th? Or
Our goal is to have Lewis and I are going to work on making sure that he can be at both meetings. So yes,
at one time?
yes, we're going to try
Split yourself.
some
Clone
trickery, so.
Lewis?
Yeah, really.
No, I think we have Ira and then Rutland Town. So if we get Lewis over to Ira first, answer some questions, and we have the budget presentation we can show, and we might be able to stall till Lewis gets here a little bit. 'Cause I
Well-
think majority of the questions will be around, for Lewis around
Right, but
finance, but I think in the past,
the way the school goes,
Right.
we're gonna be done in a half an hour. So Lewis probably will not be able to make Rutland Town.
well, it just depends. I mean,
Yeah.
it depends on how, because Iris, yeah.
Police
right, so-
escort.
Right. But we can also, if we have a virtual link, Lewis can join us virtually.
Yeah, I think that might, if we could work that in, that might be a good
Yes.
option.
Even if
People
it's
were
something like
asking
this.
for that.
Yeah, I know they were, but then again, they're gonna, because they've had that available. It's a lot nicer to sit there with a bowl of popcorn, and I understand that you're nice and warm and cozy. But, and I think that would be a great idea. There's a lot of people that will not. Over the years, they've gotten used to clear roads, and
So we go on first again for
Yes.
town meeting, okay? And you want the same setup as last time? With the projector, computer?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
And what we can do is even if we don't have a virtual link, we'll still have a link set up so Lewis can join us remotely to answer any questions they may have, and we'll.
I think that'll work great.
well, I think it's
Yeah,
better
he
than.
doesn't have to physically be there.
Right.
Yeah.
I
Especially
think
if-
that's better than poor Lewis
Yeah.
out there trying to run from, or you, run from meeting to meeting.
Yeah, if that's okay with you,
You got
Lewis.
this.
Yeah, I'll go wherever I'm told.
Oh, you have that on tape.
Like a car or something like that if I do it from Ira.
Thank you.
You got it on tape now,
All right.
Tina.
And then we'll have the reorganization meeting March 13th in the library here. There's no need for executive session tonight, Chris.
Okay.
All right, so good and welfare.
This being my last meeting, I want to thank all of you. This has been a wonderful experience. Lynette, thank you for all your years of service. And good luck to the future board members. You know, it's definitely worth your time. It really is. And to give back to your community and work with good people like this is always like rewarding. So, thank you.
Thank you for your time and service, Billy. We'll miss you. And thank you for still joining in on the facilities
Oh yeah, for sure.
committee. That's awesome.
And I just want to thank everybody, the school. 36 years is a long time. The school has changed dramatically. The students, not so much. But I'll tell you, I've been a wreck all day because this is my last meeting. And when you do anything for 36 years, it becomes a habit. And the only way I'm going to break it is by not signing on and listening. But I want to let everybody know if you have any questions, because I know I have not a vast amount of knowledge, but as they say, if you don't learn from the past, you're gonna duplicate it, and that's not always a good thing. There's so many things that have happened. But if you have any questions, call me. I don't care. You know? But I am going to miss you all.
We'll miss
Truly.
you too.
That's it.
Did we get that?
Oh. Oh,
Are we doing that? I thought,
we somehow missed the contract recommendation for,
I make a motion to
Sorry.
accept the recommendation for the superintendent's salary.
no, the principals.
Principals,
Sarah
I'm sorry, who did I say,
sorry.
superintendent?
Sorry about that,
Oh, we
Sarah.
already took care of that.
All
You're
in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for catching that.
Yeah, no worries.
I thought it was for executive session, that's why I didn't say anything.
Oh,
Good and welfare for me. Do you have, before I get into that, your grandkids are still, how many are still, or relevant?
I have 3 grandchildren. 2 of them are 9th graders, one in Rutland High, the other one is in Maine. And my granddaughter is a junior, so next year she's going to be a senior.
I know,
My
it's
God, I'm getting old. Yeah, so just watching them very carefully, but it's awesome.
Well, you have to make your way to some.
Is this an
Rutland
open meeting or what?
It's still open.
Oh, my God.
meeting or what? Welcome.
I thought you were going to lock the front door.
She tried.
Oh, my God.
Proud.
Drag John Paul out, too? I'm missing
What's
one.
going on?
No, I'm right here.
Not you, Arnie.
Who are you missing?
Anna.
Anna.
They win a game and then she doesn't come? I can't congratulate her?
It's senior night.
I know it's senior night.
Well, you can't expect her to miss senior night now.
Yeah, I can.
On behalf of the SU, I want to present you with this for all your years of service.
It's not a negligee, right?
Now, wait a second, I have to get pictures. We have to scrapbook this occasion.
I could have made it worse, Chris. That was
It
clean.
was just a good reminder.
Yeah.
Should we actually close the meeting down and then do this?
Yeah, probably. It's up to you.
Okay.
I'm just glad there isn't a
I need a
happy
motion.
happy retirement song.
We haven't got there
We
yet.
should leave that to.
Yeah, would you like to make the motion to close the meeting?
I make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.